I welcome you to today's class. Very soon, the lecture is going to begin. While you wait for the lecture to commence, kindly go to the chat section and write down your name as well as your class. Make sure you write down your name and your class at the chat section. Today, we are going to continue with the history of Africa, but our focus is going to be on the empires of Western Sudan. The Sudanic Empire consists of a group of powerful states which developed in an area called south of the Sahara Desert between the year AD 700s and 1500s. The Arabs called the South Sahara Desert area Belad al-Sudan, which is translated as the land of the blacks. This means that when the term Sudan was used, it came to represent the land of the blacks. Last week, in our discussion of the history of Africa, I indicated that I indicated on the map of Africa that Africa is divided into two by the equator. And we have the North Africa and South Africa. I also indicated that the southern part of Africa is referred to as the Trans-Saharan Africa. We made a distinction that in Northern Africa, the people who live there are fair-skinned, whilst in Southern Africa, the people who live there are dark-skinned. So the area called Western Sudan is located in the southern part of Africa, and the people who live there are dark-skinned. Because of that, the Arabs called that place Belad al-Sudan. Several empires emerged in the Sudanic area, but the most prominent of them were the Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire, and the Ghana Empire. The Sudanic Empire, putting all the three empires together, reigned for a period of 800 years. Their chiefs, or their rulers, had so much power and wealth and dignity. They were very well respected rulers. They got their wealth from their trading activities. They were in charge of trade all along the sub-Saharan area. This gave them a lot of foreign connections and a very large place for them to sell their goods and their products. This resulted in the rulers becoming very wealthy, and it had a replication on the empires as well. Although the rulers and the kingdom were very powerful, the rulers did not have a close relationship with their people. Whenever they had to communicate with their people, they did it through spokespersons. So, for instance, today in Ghana, when Akufo-Addo, who is the president, wants to talk to the people of Ghana, he goes to a television station and then he speaks directly to the people through the television. But in Western Sudan, The rulers did not speak directly with the people. They rather give the messages to their spokespersons. And one of such spokesperson is known or was known as the griot. A griot is explained as a person who is responsible for keeping the record of the traditions and history of a group of people. So these griots will recite and recount the history and tradition of a particular group of people. Because of that, in traditional African society, the griots were very important people. Because if you wanted to know about your history, you have to go to the griots for them to recount it for you. So most of the rulers had griots with them, and they worked as spokesperson for them. Some of the griots even served as counselors, and they were involved in the settlement of disputes in the various empires. Now, let's move into a brief discussion of the various Sudan empires. The first empire to begin with is the Ghana Empire. The Ghana Empire is the first Sudanic empire to arise in the area. It was founded by a group of people known as the Soninke. This foundation was around the year AD 800. The Ghana Empire was known to be a very wealthy kingdom, and their wealth and power grew all the way into the mid thousands. As their power continued to grow, a Muslim group from North Africa called Almoravids came in to take control of some parts of the Saharan trade routes. And they also took control of some parts of the Sudan area. Because of this, the power of the Ghana Empire began to decline. I have earlier indicated that because the Sudanic empires were involved in trading along the Saharan trading routes, it gave them so much power and money. So when the Almoravids invaded the Ghana Empire and took control of some parts of the Saharan trade routes, it weakened the power and the wealth of the Ghana Empire. Although the Ghana Empire, its strength and power was weakened, the Almoravids could not take total control of the area. So the Ghana Empire, although they were invaded by the Almoravids, they continued to survive all the way until the 1200s, but they never regained their former power back. In the early 1200s, another group of people from southern Soninke who were who were known as the Susu people also began gaining influence in the Ghana Empire area. But the power of the Susu people was so much that they were able to finally conquer the Ghana Empire in the mid 1200s. These Susu people were led by a ruler called Sunjata Keita. He was the king of the Malinke. So Sunjata, after conquering the Ghana Empire, took over the area and founded the Mali Empire. So the Mali Empire was the second empire to emerge after the Ghana Empire. The Mali Empire also continued to survive all the way from the 1200s, and it reached its peak in the 1300s. It expanded the size of the Ghana Empire to cover the Atlantic coast in the west, and even went much deeper into the northeast part of the Sahara area. Mansa Musa is known to be one of the famous rulers of the Mali Empire. He was able to establish greatly the Islamic religion, and he shaped the Islamic character of the Mali Empire. He is known to have expanded the Mali Empire to its greatest size. The power of the Mali Empire grew so much that another group of people called the Berbers, also within the Sahara region, paid tribute to them, and their armies even served in the Army Empire. But in the year 1300s, the Mali Empire also lost its power and influence over the Sahara area. They were also invaded by the Tuareg people, who took advantage of the fact that the Mali Empire had lost some of its political influence and had become weak. And this advantage gave this made them take control of one of the busiest and wealthy cities in the Mali Empire, known as the Timbuktu. After this emerged the Songhai Empire. The Songhai Empire was the last empire to arise in the Sudan area. This took place somewhere in the year 1400s. So, when the Tuareg people took advantage of the weaknesses of the Mali Empire to capture the city of Timbuktu, the Songhai ruler called Sunni Ali also chased them out of the Timbuktu city and added the Timbuktu city to the area that was formerly occupied by the Mali Empire. When Sunni Ali chased the Tuareg people from the Timbuktu city, he also gained control of the area, and he even expanded the size of the empire all the way to the middle Niger River. The Songhai Empire enjoyed its greatest power within the year 1500s. It formed alliances with the Tuareg, and they extended the empire over large portions of the Western Sudan. However, in the year 1591, the Songhai Empire was also conquered by Morocco, and this brought to an end the reign of the empires of the Sudan area. In Western Sudan, especially with regards to the three empires, whenever a ruler or one chief died, the people did not have specific rules and regulations as to how to choose a new ruler to succeed the ruler who has just died. Because of this, there were disputes over who to succeed one ruler after the other. So conflicts over succession were very common in the Western Sudan area. These empires, after the death of a ruler, survived because when a person was chosen to become the ruler, the other people did not challenge the legitimacy of that ruler. The Keita dynasty, for instance, they, they were in control all the way from the 1200s to the 1500s, and they continued to rule over small chiefdoms even after the empire had broken up. So there was a consensus among the people as to who should take over the throne after the death of a ruler. Now, let's look at the economic activities of the Sudanic empires. Here we are talking about what all the three empires were engaged in as economic activity. Research shows that in the Sudanic empires, where their economy was basically based on fishing, agriculture, and pastoralism. They engaged in these activities, which allowed them to produce a variety of products, which they could sell to other places. It's really helped them in their trading activities because it gave them a lot of products or a lot of goods for them to take to other parts of Africa and even beyond Africa to sell. When it came to the trading activities, the women were in charge of trading within the local area, whilst the men were also in charge of trading outside the local area. So the men were engaged in, today we will say, international travel trades. They would travel from one place to the other, very long distance areas, to go and sell their goods. Some of the traders set up businesses along the main Saharan trading routes. And when their businesses were set up, they used their relatives and their slaves to help them manage the businesses. So when the men went into distant places, their relatives or their slaves took care of the businesses that were established along the Saharan trading routes. The trading activities, as I have earlier indicated, strengthened the power of the Sudanic rulers, and it brought them so much money. It also brought them connections with foreign traders. And this contributed to the growth and the power of the Sudanic empires. The trading also gave them total control, almost total control over very important products like horses and metals. As the Sudanic empires continue to grow, as the Ghana, the Mali, and the Songhai empires continue to grow, the trade routes became more well established. And the path they were trading on was very safe. That at a point, an Arabic traveler called Ibn Battuta even praised the Sudanic rulers for how safe they have kept the Sahara trading route. What kind of religion were the people of the Sudanic empires practicing? Study shows that most of the most of the rulers of the Sudanic empires, the various Sudanic empires, largely practiced Islam. The chiefs were the first people to convert to Islam. They got so much attracted to Islam because they saw it to be a religion which represented a higher, more prosperous civilization. And they also saw Islam as a very powerful religion, and they wanted to be associated with it. Again, the Arabs who introduced the religions to the Sudanic area were very well educated people. So this also attracted the rulers. Some of them employed the Arabs as clerks, teachers, and even advisors to their kingdoms. They gave them the opportunity to write the history and the cultural practices of their societies. The chief's adoption or conversion to Islam was total conversion and acceptance of the religion. Because of that, they adopted Muslim names. They learned how to pray the Muslim way. They even celebrated the Muslim festivals. They would go to the Muslim leaders and ask them for blessings and gave them official roles in their kingdoms. Although most of these rulers accepted completely the Muslim, accepted completely the Islam religion and became Muslims, they still practiced their traditional religious beliefs. They felt that there were certain spiritual needs, certain spiritual protection that the Muslim or Islam religion could not give to them. So once they practiced Islam, they also practiced their traditional religion to satisfy that religious desire that Islam could not fulfill. Generally, although the people of the Sudanic empires practiced their traditional religious religion alongside Islam, Islam became the most dominant religion in some market towns. This is because whenever the traders had to travel from their hometowns to other places, they were removed from their traditional religion. And the religion they got exposed to was the Islam religion. So, in order to satisfy their religious needs, they fell on Islam and practiced that religion. While some of the Sudanic rulers worked so hard to include Islamic practices in their states, which helped to spread the Islam religion, there were others who did very little to help in the spread of Islam. What kind of currency did the empires of Western Sudan rely on in their transactions? There were various types of money, or there were various types of things that they used as money. Examples are gold, copper, iron, shells, and even strips of cloth. But the most important currency was gold. And the gold was either in the form of gold dust or gold coins. And these two were used for several years. But as the years progressed, somewhere in the year thousands, the traders began to weigh the gold dust against the gold coins. And they realized that the gold coins was more valuable than the gold dust. So by the year 1000, they adopted the gold coins as their official currency, which was used in their daily activities and transactions. At about the same time, that is in the year 1000, when the people in the Sudan area were adopting the gold coins as their former currency, the Maldive Islands in the Indian Ocean also were using cowrie shells. Were also using cowrie shells. And where the cowrie shells were not available, they relied on cloth as their currency. One important thing that is associated with the Western Sudan empires is the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal is a waterway or a path that was created to link the Mediterranean and the Red Seas. It's a waterway in Egypt that was established to help in the transportation of goods from one place to the other. In terms of the size of the Suez Canal, it cuts across the Isthmus of Suez. The Isthmus of Suez is a piece of land that connects or links Africa and Western Asia. When the canal, when I say canal, I mean a piece of land or an area that has been created. It's like a piece of land, and then the place has been dug so that water can pass through that particular area that has been dug. So this place that was dug is called the Suez, and the hole that was dug connects Africa and Western Asia. It was dug so that water can fill that area for ships to be able to travel from or to travel through that area. When the canal was dug and the place or the hole was filled with water and ships could not travel on it, it made travelers or people coming from Europe to Asia, it made their distance very short. Now, let me show you something. Look at the map here. This is the map of Africa. I believe you remember from the first class. To the northern part at the top is Spain and Turkey. Now, you can see a red line that is drawn all the way around the map of Africa. This is the route that before the construction of the canal, if you were coming from Europe or America, if you look at the left of the map, you can see Venezuela, where they have written the 15,000 miles. You can see Brazil, Bolivia, Paraguay. Before the construction of the Suez Canal, if you were coming from any part of this area, let's say, for instance, Brazil or Venezuela, you had to travel all the way around the map, all the way around Africa before you can go to places like Iran or Pakistan or India, which is to the right. But when the Suez Canal was created in Egypt, it created a very short path. So people coming from Brazil, when they get to Spain, will just pass through Egypt and then go to the other parts of the world. This meant that the Suez Canal served as an important link between various continents of the world. The Suez Canal was not the first waterway that was built across Egypt. In fact, records shows that in the ancient times, the Egyptians dug a channel from the Nile River to the Red Sea. This channel was later lengthened in the year AD 775, but the Arab rulers destroyed it. But as trade began to continue between Europe and Asia, and the trading activities increased in the later centuries, it became very important for people or the traders in these other various continents to find a much shorter way to travel from their continent to another continent. Last week, we studied that Africa is mostly surrounded by water, which means that if you were traveling from Europe or from America to another part, you had to travel through the river or the oceans that surround Africa. But when the Suez Canal was created in Egypt, it opened another waterway that traders could use. Ships could now use that path to go to other parts of the world, which was very short compared to having to travel all the way around Africa before you go to other places like Europe or Asia. Each time efforts were made to construct a canal which will pass through Egypt to make trading routes very short. It was very difficult. It became very difficult all the way onto in the year 1854. So in 1854, the Egypt government allowed or authorized the construction of the Suez Canal. And this authorization was given to a French engineer called Ferdinand de Lesseps. Under the management of the Suez Canal Company, which is called an association of European and Egyptian shareholders, the Suez Canal was created or was built, and the Association of European and Egyptian Shareholders had the right to operate the canal for 99 years. They operated the canal for 99 years. At first, during the construction of the canal, the company used or they forced poor Egyptian unpaid peasant farmers to dig the canal by their hand. So they were using tools like hoes and axes and pickaxes to dig the canal. But later there were criticisms as to why they would let people to use their hands or handmade tools to dig a canal which is supposed to be so big and so deep to allow ships to travel through Egypt. When the criticisms increased, the company then employed European workers who came in with very heavy machines to complete the work. So the construction of the Suez Canal was completed in the year 1869. And the size, if you look at the length, was 100 miles long. And the depth, how deep it was 30 feet. And then how wide it was also 100 feet. And it was created to pass through 4 lakes and 8 major bends. This allowed several hundreds of ships to travel from other parts of the world through the canal to other destinations. As the years progressed, the number of ships who used the Suez Canal continued to grow and increase every year. In the year 1956, the Egyptian government took control of the Suez Canal and they began to manage it by themselves. It was managed by a company or a government institution called the Egyptian Suez Canal Authority. Due to conflicts that Egypt had with their neighbor Israel, the canal had been closed twice. It was closed in the year 1956 to 1957. It was also closed in the year between 1967 to 1975. Today, the canal is still in use, but it is not as busy as it was, especially in the 1966, where about 21,250 ships or passages were made through the Suez Canal. Today, the ships, the modern ships, are too wide to travel through the Suez Canal. But ships continue to use the Suez Canal. What this means is that the Suez Canal was a very important project in the Western Sudan area. It was a trading route, a very important trading route, which also brought wealth to the people. Today, it is one of Egypt's large resources, which breaks the foreign exchange and helps in the growth of their economy. So what have we been discussing all this far? Let's give a summary of today's lesson. Today, we have been introduced to the 3 empires that arose in the Western Sudan area. These empires are called the Sudanic empires of Western Africa, or the empires of Western Sudan. We have said that there was the Ghana Empire, the Songhai Empire, and the Mali Empire. These empires put together reigned together for a period of 800 years. Their chiefs had a very long distance relationship with the people, and they only spoke to them through griots. The Ghana Empire, we have said, is the first empire which was founded by the Soninke people. It gained control, so much wealth and power, but in the mid-1200s, it was conquered by Sundiata Keita, who established the Mali Empire. The Mali Empire, which is the second empire, also grew in size and strength and wealth, expanded the size of the Ghana Empire. But in the late 1300s, they also lost some of their political influence over the Sahara area. This led to the Tuareg people taking advantage of their weakness to capture the trading city of Timbuktu. As the years progressed, a leader called Sunni Ali also chased the Tuareg people out of the Timbuktu city, conquered the Mali Empire, and then established the Songaya Empire. The Songaya Empire also increased the size of the empire, but in the year 1591 was conquered by Morocco, which brought to an end the 800-year history of the Sudanic empires. We said they were engaged in fishing, agriculture, pastoralism, and trading. They traded in goods like salt, metals, and horses. And they had very good connections, especially foreign connections. We have also said that the religion they practiced were predominantly Islam. The rulers were the first people to accept the religion completely, while the common people accepted it partially, although they did not abandon their traditional religion. They used gold, copper, iron shells, and strips of cloth as money. So whenever they had to engage in business transactions, they used these items in their activities on business transactions. We also mentioned the Suez Canal, which is a very important waterway created in or located in Cairo in Egypt. It is a waterway which serves as a link between the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea and connects Europe all the way to Western Asia and other parts of the world. We have said that the Suez Canal allows for easy traveling from one part of the continent to the other without having to go through all the way around Africa, which was a very long distance. It was a very busy canal or waterway which brought money to the economy of the Sudanic empires, and it is now also bringing money to Egypt or the Egyptian government. This is where we bring our class to a close. We will meet same time next week. Before you leave, make sure you go to the chat section and then you write your name and your class. This is for purposes of attendance. Right. Thank you and have a lovely day.